Welcome to another Founder Wisdom Pod. We have doron themans with us today. He's an innovation and strategy specialist, entrepreneur, a chatbot strategist, and botcasters host. That's a podcast. You can go check it out. Today we're going to talk about AI, podcasting, ChatGPT, chatbots, Gemini, and even Grok if we're lucky. This pod is presented to you by my company. It's called podpire.com. And basically, we help you scale your podcast and we help you monetize your podcast because a bunch of people give up podcasting because it's not profitable. They don't make any money off it. So we make it an ikigai activity in which you can have fun and make it profitable at the same time. doron, welcome to the pod. Tell me a bit more about yourself and podcasters.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm 55, father of three, proud father of three. The kids left the house already, and I have a dog. Well, that is the last one is she occasionally runs into my podcast, which is really funny. She's the podcast dog. I started, I used to be an entrepreneur. I sold the company and came back to entrepreneuring a couple of years ago when I was working in a company and I had to solve a certain problem. And I found out that a chatbot, but typically not the typical chatbot, but an outbound chatbot was the solution to that problem. And funnily enough, it was mentioned by someone in the Dutch government that this was a very good example of how to communicate and work with financial services customers to get them aware in a decent way, because ethics is an important thing. And that got me thinking, and I got questions from other companies. So, well, can you help us? Can you tell us how you did it? I'm like, okay, if I can do it for one company, maybe we can do it for more companies. So we started a company with two other people, strategizing and implementing chatbots. And the funny thing is, we never started a website because there was so much business. We only work on referrals. So we get to choose our customers, and we don't put anything out there. And anything we do for a company, we want to keep it sort of private. It's up to the company to serve that to others. But that's one thing. But what happened was, I was looking for, as we were doing new stuff, I was looking for knowledge online. And I found out that all the podcasts that were out there, either they did a couple of podcasts and they didn't make any money on it and they stopped, which some of them were actually good. So didn't help. And the other ones that were there, they were all sponsored by platforms, technical platforms. So basically the solution was always that platform. And I wasn't looking for that. I was looking for boots on the ground, people that actually solved problems, real life problems. So, and then my oldest son, who was at the time producing television, theater, and podcasts, said to me, why don't you start your own podcast? And I said, well, it's a lot of work, and you need commitment, and I don't know what I'm up against, never did it. So the next thing he comes with a list to me, he says, you need to order this. So next thing I knew, like 2 days later, there was a sort of a pallet delivered to me with the equipment I ordered. And that's how we started. And by now we are a media partner of one convention. And I'm proud to announce that in April, I'm partnering with another convention where we are going to hand out the Chatbot Awards, which I'm part of, empowering. So we started something out of frustration, and it's turning into a brand, basically, where we have people come and talk and in depth about how they solved certain problems, what their experience is, and people learn. That was the whole idea, sharing knowledge.
What about your hardware equipment? What microphone do you use? What camera and so forth? And also tell us the tech stack behind your podcast.
The what? The tech stack. Well, we use Rode as a microphone, a Blackmagic camera for the video. We have some studio lights, and we started off with a whole panel where we received the guests live. So we did it all with different channels. And we found out that because we started in Dutch, we got so many requests to do it in English, that if we would invite everybody over here, it would be really complicated. So we needed to do it remotely. And having two different standards of having a podcast is really complicated. There's no consistency. So we decided to do everything. We're using Riverside .fm, and I'm actually quite happy with that. And in the beginning, we were doing the clips ourselves. Now we're using AI. We moved to Opus to do it, and that really saved us a shitload of time and a lot of efficiency. It's actually worth the money. So yeah, so we're learning every time, and what works and what doesn't work. And the one thing my son said to me, he said, you know, because I was worried about, okay, and what I'm saying is, it interests me, but does it interest the audience? He said, look at Joe Rogan. He talks about what he wants to talk about. He's having a great conversation. If you and the guest have a great conversation, and that's the conclusion of you both, it is okay. It is good. So it's what you said in the beginning, the ikigai, you should have fun. And if it's no fun, you can't keep up. So we're busy over a year now. We're having fun. We're traveling. So yeah, I'm a happy camper.
So how do you make money off that?
Well, the purpose of the podcast wasn't to make money. It was to, because the conversational AI community is a very specific, very young community, and it's growing, and everybody's looking for, I would say, the truth. And there is that's kind of complicated because it's all new, and especially with the upcoming of generative AI, you have the hockey stick effect. It goes really, there's a really steep learning curve now. So in a lot of podcasts, I also test a chatbot live. So I don't know which one in advance. My guest decides which one, and so we test it on the screen and talk about what we see and how it could be improved, or maybe it's really good. So we do that too. Not in all the podcasts, depends on the guest. So it wasn't about making money. It's still not about making money. It's about sharing knowledge. I do not want any sponsorships by any technical parties, because that's the actual reason why we began. So we stay consistent, and we're building a brand, and that's how we got to be a media partner of one convention, doing chatbot awards with another organization. Yeah, and I get to be a speaker. The spin-off is actually where you make the money. I have to be honest. You get asked to be a speaker at a convention. You get asked to train people. People look me up and let us help them improve their chatbots or create new chatbots or new concepts. And I learned so much that we also started a new company, which we actually last week landed the first customer in AI. It's still under the radar, but yeah, we're basically solving all the inherent problems which I heard about in my podcast. We're like, well, if everybody has this problem, why not solve it? So
what are these problems?
Well, if you think about that's actually a good question, because one of the problems people have is that these models, they tend to hallucinate. So you put stuff in and you get something out of it, and even if you ask the same question in a month's time, you could get a different result because these models develop. So that's one problem. The other problem is that security. You have no idea where it goes. And another problem is it green? No, all these models, the way they're operated now, it's not very green. And I'm not, the typical greenwasher, but all these companies that they say that they're working according to ESG norms. If they're at the stock market, it's even more important. Or if they're working with OpenAI or one of the other models, they're not. They're definitely not. They cannot claim that, because it uses so much energy and so much clean water. And the last one is actually there's two more. There's the token cost, which if you're successful, it goes totally out of control. So you have an uncontrollable business model. And from a business point of view, I've been on the other side, at the buying side. It's really annoying when you have no control over your cost. That's a very bad business model. And the last one is the huge problem of vendor lock-in right now, because what I'm actually writing an article about this. What you see happening is that Google or Alphabet, Amazon, and Microsoft. And Microsoft actually today came out with that their investment in Mistral in France, which is they're under scrutiny also with their investment in OpenAI. This big tech is actually pushing everybody to go to the cloud, to put everything in the cloud because it's cheaper, more efficient, safer. Part of that is true, but at the same time, on the next layer, they're pushing their AI. And if you're in their cloud and you're using their AI, you have a full lock-in that you cannot switch anymore as a big corporation. It's impossible. So they're putting up thresholds which are not strategically not very good ideas if you're a corporation to do it that way. So one of the things we're doing is like offering companies to do that in a different way and solving all these problems in the slipstream, which basically makes it cheaper, no risk of hallucination, so there's no legal risk, and you comply immediately with European AI Act. I don't know if you're aware of the European AI Act. I recorded a podcast. It's now live with a member of European Parliament, one of the big drivers behind the European AI Act. And there's this huge risk. If you train your model too much on your data, you go from a client, from a deployer to a provider. And the consequence is that you have all the product liability. And that's a huge risk if you're a company. So, and a lot of companies on a C-level, they have no idea what they're getting into. So that's one of the things. There's another series we're recording right now, specifically for the Netherlands. I'm doing that together with another company. It's focused on C-level executives, teaching them about the risks of what they're getting into with AI. And and that might lead to customers, actually will lead to customers, but the purpose is to teach and make them aware.
So right now with your agency, do you have productized services or are you just selling hours?
We're selling a combination of hours and services, but we want to be tech-agnostic. So basically, we're not linked to any tech provider because otherwise the solution is always the tech you provide, and that can't be true. So for now, that is a model, but because in the startup we're in, we're building actually software. It's going to be it's different, and then it's a product they're buying.
Right. So is there a rate per hour, a minimum per project? Is it like 5 to 15K per project? Do you have a maintenance cost over that? Like, how does it work?
Well, basically, there's a few things. If you do a project for a customer, there's you have project management time. You either do it yourself, it's not too big, or you have a project manager doing it. And you have the first part, strategizing. So where you actually take the company strategy and look at it and say, okay, where you want to go and how does AI fit into this, and should you even be doing this right now, or have a chatbot not using AI but fully structured. Those are choices you need to make, and then we help them choose the right tech stack for them with the long-term vision in mind. And basically what we say is ask a fixed amount of money, just the project price. If it's more time, it's my risk, then I probably obviously didn't do my job right. If it's less time, it's my luck. I'm just more efficient, and they're happy to pay that price because they're getting a lot of value, because we're saving them a lot of cost in the future. And we can actually show that. So a lot of companies, for instance, they buy Microsoft bot framework because they're already on Microsoft, and then they find out they need to do a lot, and it costs them a lot more to actually do it, and it's too big, too much for actually what they need it for. So and then going back, they need to redo everything, so that's a costly experience. Or it stops by the way, or it stops innovation because nobody knows how to do it.
Right. Grok, ChatGPT, Gemini? Which one's the most impressive in what scenarios?
I haven't worked with Grok. I see Mistral in France developing interestingly, making good moves. Actually, they surpassed OpenAI in some of the fields. But what you see happening now is you have these general models. But what I see happening is now, and that's far more interesting, you see these smaller models come up and very specialized. Like, for instance, Google just brought out a model for the medical field, which is interesting. You get these specialized models, so there's a lot more value in there, less risk on hallucination, and more appropriate to use in a specific branch. So you can't say one is better than the other. They all have their specializations. But what you see is it's like, how do you say that when kids they bend over and they jump over each other's back? You know that when you're in school, and you have this line, you know, like frogs. You know what I mean or not? And that's what you see happening. They learn from their competitor, improve on that. It's like what the Japanese do, and then they put in a better model, and it goes really, really fast. And it's all dependent also on the chips, and that's another problem. As we know, Sam Altman announced that he wanted to start creating chips as a competitor of NVIDIA, which to have other chip producers is a good idea. I'm not sure if it should be OpenAI or Sam Altman, but that's my thoughts. Too much power in one hand.
Yeah, I don't think that's gonna be for long. I don't really believe in monopolies, whatever people say. I've started testing Grok today, and yeah, it's pretty good. Not sure why they waited to give me access. I couldn't get it in Mexico. I couldn't get it in Canada, and magically it appeared in my account, I think, today. I like that the fact that it's like not woke, so it won't, censor some parts of its answer. I'm very much behind that, but yeah, just like you, I'm constantly testing out tools. I've checked out Mistral. Hopefully, I'll get a couple of them come on my podcast. Quite interesting what you're doing as well with the pods. So keep that up. Where can people find out more about you, Doron?
And I can ask you one thing. You said one interesting thing, and we had a whole discussion about that. You said, "I'm glad Grok. I didn't test it yet. Is not woke, right?" You said that, and this is really interesting because you have this whole movement that people say, "Oh, you need to take the bias out of the model." But if the internet or a lot of the data on the internet is in the model, that is sort of reality, right? That's the way the world looks. So if you start changing that, that's the way you want the world to be, or some people want the world to be. And then you're actually introducing bias and you have no control over it. So it's more dangerous to change it than to keep it that way, and knowing what's in there, that there is, because if you have it in the medical field, for instance, if you look in Europe, they have different diseases than in Africa. And you would assume that in the databases of the hospitals in Europe, you have a lot of Europeans with typical European diseases. But in Africa, they hardly have any Europeans in the databases, or in Asia, with those diseases. So you should be careful with changing the bias in a data set. That was on the point of wokeness. Where can they find more? Well, they can go to podcasters.nl. I think we'll soon change it to podcaster.com because we started for the Dutch market and we changed it internationally. We have the .com, so we'll change it. So that's one thing. And they can send an email to info@podcasters.nl, or follow me or say something on LinkedIn, which is fine. I post in a lot of channels. And call me. They can find my phone number on LinkedIn. We're actually quite accessible.